So, the biggest reason why I wanted to have you on today is because we're going to have a very cool conversation about sugar. If you guys
Yeah.
follow Freelee, she's been talking a lot about like white table sugar and the benefits of that. And I'm not super well versed in all of that. So, I wanted to have Freelee on to talk about it and have her kind of get into the science of it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, I guess, you know, I guess the most natural place I think to start, and you could choose if you want to take this talking point or go somewhere else. But, first of all, like fruit sugar is not bad. And
Mm.
so then naturally, I guess table sugar is not bad. So why is then white table sugar also not bad? And how is
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
What people need to understand is every cell in the human body runs on sugar. Okay, it runs on glucose. And humans are sugar miners. We are really, really after the sucrose in food. So sucrose is high in fruits. Okay, it's not high in grains and stuff like that. That's glucose based. So sucrose is equivalent to white sugar. It's the same chemical molecule that you find in fruit. Is the same as what you find in, the bag of white sugar. So it's identical, and I understand how, people are afraid of it because not only does it look white and kind of like chemically, it
Yeah.
does, right? It's like, oh, wow, that's too white. But white sugar isn't actually white. It's actually a crystal. It's translucent or clear. So it's not white at all. It's just the way that the light hits the scattered crystals, the different angles of the crystal.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like snow, right?
Okay. Yeah. I
Snow
never
is
thought.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, snow is actually clear. It's just about how the light hits it, so it makes it appear white.
Yeah.
So if people can grasp that firstly, I think that's really important because then they can be like, oh, wow, it's not even white. It's not like some chemical bleached agent. It's
Yeah.
actually a clear crystal created through photosynthesis, which is when the
Okay.
plant makes the sucrose or makes the white table sugar. It's the same
Yeah.
molecule, makes the sucrose out of the sunlight, the carbon dioxide, and water together. So that comes from the sunshine. So it's actually crystallized sunlight. It's crystallized sunshine that you're eating. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's pretty amazing. Like yeah, it's very, very healthy. And I know it's going to be very hard to convince most of your audience that it is healthy, but hopefully I can just drop a few things that make them feel more comfortable about it,
Absolutely.
more confident. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Same
what
molecule.
about how have you added more than white table sugar into your diet now that you're like, okay, I don't need to be afraid of it. So how are you adding it in?
Well, I add it into my smoothies and
Okay.
I'll put a couple of tablespoons, but I've been doing that for like over 12 years. But
Okay.
more recently, I have sugar water, which is it's just 4 tablespoons of any sugar you want. Okay, but white sugar, this is another thing that people need to realize. White sugar is actually the purest. It's 99.9% pure. It
Okay.
doesn't have a lot of contaminants. And when I say contaminants, it's when they're cooking the sugar and you see it turning dark brown like molasses, that's
Yep.
actually like burnt plant matter. A lot of that is burnt plant matter. People are
Okay.
like, no, it's minerals. It's not minerals. Minerals don't go dark like that.
Yeah.
So it's not actually healthier to have the brown sugar or the molasses because the white sugar has actually just been spun more and just processed a little bit more. Processing doesn't equal bad. Process a
Okay.
little bit more so it's actually completely pure. You're not getting any contaminants. You're just getting the sucrose crystals, which is what you want.
Yeah.
So I just add 4 tablespoons of white sugar or raw, it doesn't matter, whatever you feel comfortable with,
Yeah.
and frozen berries and some lemon or lime juice, and into like maybe in about 800 mils to 1 liter.
Okay.
And I
And
have
you drink
that.
that.
Yeah, I drink that like in the morning because overnight your liver depletes up to 60%, 60 to 80% of the glycogen in the
Yep.
liver.
Hmm.
Okay, and sugar water is really amazing because sucrose breaks into glucose and fructose, which are your body and your brain's main fuel sources. Glucose is number one, but fructose also helps power the cells in different ways, and especially replenishes the liver.
Okay.
after the overnight fast.
Yeah.
So people having coffee and stuff like that, they're really depleting themselves, even
Yeah.
further when the body is asking for sugar, and that's what I'm giving it by doing the sugar water. And I also add it to cooking as well.
Oh, okay.
So
Super
yeah,
cool.
probably about like 150 to 180 grams a day. So it's,
Okay, table sugar.
yeah, a fair bit.
Yeah. And then in addition to the fruits that you're eating during the day.
In addition, yeah,
Yeah.
and the fruits, I have almost always 10 bananas a day. Almost
Yeah.
always. It depends. I mean, like, we got bought some
Oh my
durian
gosh,
from a friend.
that's a cute
Yeah,
durian.
yeah. I love it. Like, I wish I could say we grew it, but we haven't, not yet. We have trees and they are
Yeah.
maturing.
So
I
cool.
actually had durian for breakfast, which is such a
Oh,
treat.
that's awesome. Yeah. That
Yeah,
is
but
a
I always have 2 meals of fruit per day, and
okay.
then I do raw till 4, which is a diet that I created
Okay.
quite a few years ago, which is just fruit for breakfast, fruit for lunch, and then a cooked low-fat, high-carb, plant-based meal for dinner.
Yeah. It's so funny. I had before I had even followed you, I was like I had naturally gravitated toward fruit all day until dinner, and then you were calling it raw tail 4, and I was like, oh, okay, that
I
makes
do
sense.
that. Yeah, I think a lot of people were doing that, and it gives more freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
More freedom.
It's the most effortless. Like, I mean, some
Mm.
nights for dinner, I'm like, okay, I actually want a raw dinner. And
Yeah,
so I,
yeah.
I allow myself that freedom, but it feels the most effortless to be like, okay, yeah, raw all day. And then dinner, I'll have my like more cooked meal or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to just be able to relax a bit and not have to. I mean, once upon a time, I did have more of a purity focus, where
Hmm.
I felt like I had to be raw, like I wouldn't be healthy unless I was all raw.
Yeah.
And, I did it for like nearly 6 years and it was
Hmm.
great. And look, it is our natural diet, right? It is our natural diet to eat fruit based and all raw. But in this concrete jungle, in this environment, that most of us live in, trying to exist amongst other cooked fooders, let alone people eating meat and everything like that, it can definitely make it a lot easier and still
Yeah.
be very healthy. So,
Absolutely. So let me ask you something. Then what would you say is the difference between like sugar water and then like fresh juice? Like
yeah.
is like sugar water still superior or would they be about equal?
The thing is, with juice, it's very hard to get the amount of sucrose in the juice compared to if you add it yourself. Like, you can really bump up the nutrition a lot. Like, you have more control over
Mhm.
it. Like,
Yeah.
fruit has micronutrients, of course, phytochemicals like polyphenols, all that great stuff. And that's amazing. And I'll never try and claim that you should just eat straight sugar. That
Yeah.
should be a meal, and you know what I mean, and not have
Yeah.
fruit. No, I'm
Right.
more about adding it,
Like
to
supplement.
bump, to
Yeah.
bump up the nutrition, because humans are, like I said, really after the sucrose, and it's very important for us because as soon as we can consume it, part of it goes to our liver and part goes like to the bloodstream. It's and fuels every cell in our body, the muscles, the brain, and it's like this perfect harmony. And because there's fructose in there, it's not. I mean, the blood sugar spike. We can talk about that, hey?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I want to get to that.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get to that. We'll get to that
Yeah.
soon. But yeah, it's really it. Juice is fantastic. It really is a fantastic, of course. But I recommend adding some sugar to the juice because we
Yeah.
live in a world now where the fruit quality is very poor. It's
Yeah.
very poor because the soil has been absolutely pillaged, by modern farming practices. It's
Hmm.
really, really bad.
Yeah.
Uh, the the practices of, like, picking it super, super early, gassing it. There's
Yeah.
so many things that modern society has incorporated to make it convenient and quick. So
Totally.
yeah, the fruit is. I mean, I'm sure you'd agree. Some of the fruit that you buy, like from the supermarket or something, tastes absolutely shocking.
Or it never ripens because it was picked way too
Never,
early.
never ripens, or ripens weirdly, like, or just, yeah, explodes or something before it actually ripens.
Yeah.
So this is
Totally.
a way we can control the nutrition. Like, we can actually, improve our situation here.
Totally, yeah. Well, I'll have to try adding sugar to my juice and I'll let you know how how it goes.
Well, I mean, like, I've got basically my whole VIP community. I have a community, a private Facebook community on Facebook, and
Yeah.
I'm doing a 12-month course. Shameless plug, by the way. I'm doing a 12-month course at the moment, and it's 30% off. If you want to join us for a full year, we've got 4 months of content already up. Recipes and live
Yeah.
streams and heaps of information. And I've got basically everybody on the sugar water in there.
Yeah.
Um, not
So cool.
it's not. There's no shame if you don't want to do it, of course. I think because I personally, it makes a lot of sense, and I've also felt a lot of improvements from it myself. So
Yeah.
I want to share it with others. But
Yeah, well, and I'm so curious about, yeah, just being able to compare. Do you do you work out? Are you super active? Have you noticed a difference in your training with adding it in?
um, I would say I'm not. I wouldn't say super active. I'm actually a bit sedentary.
Okay.
Which I don't recommend, and I speak out against it, but I'm a little bit of a hypocrite in that way, I guess. I'm quite little bit inactive because
Yeah.
I'm on the internet and the computer like 10 hours a day sometimes, and
Okay.
it's no
Yeah.
excuse, but I do still I still keep the balance though, I don't not move my body. I do exercise regularly still, but it's not that much. It could be more. But
Got
when
it.
it comes to incorporating the sugar, I definitely think it's made me more effective with my training. It's not like
Okay.
a huge jump because I was already adding sugar to smoothies, and
Okay, so it's already
yeah,
there.
and I've already been on a fruit-based diet for nearly 20 years. I don't think it's like suddenly like, whoa, I'm like, rocketing along because of the sugar. But
Yeah,
I feel more hydrated. This is a really big thing.
it's a big
And it
deal.
actually has been shown to improve hydration by adding sugar to water.
Yeah. I mean, your
And
skin looks
yeah.
super hydrated, so
Oh,
that
thank
speaks for
you.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It like I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but it really does feel hydrated. And I'm 45 this year, and I feel like it's looking, yeah, fresh. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm happy with it. But I mean, that could change. Who knows? I could just go down and turn into a wrinkly old prune soon. Who knows?
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
No. So then what about I mean, I feel like I know the answer, but obviously you wouldn't group sugar alcohols into the same category as like white table sugar, or
no,
would you?
no,
Oh no, yeah.
no. Oh, yeah. And when it comes to those, yeah, you're talking like erythritol and
Yeah.
xylitol and stuff like that. Yeah, the
Mhm.
artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Interesting thing about the artificial sweeteners, actually, they came into popularity. Like they have been around for a while, but they gained a lot of popularity in the late 90s and around
Okay.
2000. They did a big marketing push, and actually since the late 90s, 2000, sugar consumption's been steadily declining.
I did know that.
So,
Yeah.
interesting, because they're like, hey, sugar's bad, try our chemical instead. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Even though people need to understand this too, sugar is natural. This is not a synthetic thing.
Yeah.
White or translucent sugar crystals, white sugar, is actually natural. It's just been isolated and extracted from sugar beets or sugar cane. It's
Okay.
not a
Yeah.
synthetic fake thing. That's what people need to really understand. It's not something made by humans, it's made by plants.
Yeah.
So the sugar alcohols, I
Are not
really,
the
really don't like them. Yeah, yeah, because they trick the brain. They
Yeah.
trick the brain into thinking carbohydrates has come in, but you can only trick the brain for so long, right?
Yeah.
Before the brain rebels with a binge or many binges. And
Yeah.
yeah, and people just get fatter and sicker, and they're less satisfied with what they're eating. Like
Totally.
people are on the diet coke all over the place. Like these diet things, diet here, diet there. Like they just have to get on the sugar. Like the sugar is what is actually good.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. And again, I feel like we're so taught to fear sugar, fear fruit because it's all about protein. Make sure you're getting enough
oh
protein.
yes, because protein is like an energy source, not.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not an energy source. It's a building block.
Yeah.
We
Which,
shouldn't be going. Yeah.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So, um,
Yeah. So
but
don't have. Yeah. Yeah. The artificial sweeteners like
yeah,
terrible for gut health as well, microbiome. If you want to have explosive diarrhea and you know what I mean, some real digestive issues, then load up on the artificial sweetener.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a bit
So
bad.
what about like sugar and cancer? Because there's a lot, like obviously there's some people who think that all sugar feeds cancer, including
Hmm.
fruit. So people will even
Hmm.
say, okay, if you have cancer, don't even eat fruit. But then there's some people who say, okay, well, fruit is fine with cancer, but then you don't want any other sugar. Like you don't want processed sugar
Hmm.
or white table sugar. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, those people need to eat more sugar. People who think, for one, they need to eat more sugar. But yeah, I understand the fear around this because there is a lot of propaganda. There's, oh gosh, there's studies and stuff saying, oh, sugar fuels cancer, all of that. And yes, I mean, sugar fuels every single cell in our bodies. Every cell runs on sugar. So, your cancer is just your mutated cell. So, yes, it's still being fueled by sugar, but it's not most actually mainstream. The main cancers that we know of, like colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, brain cancer, lung cancer, breast, like certain breast cancer, they're actually not efficiently using the glucose that comes into the cell. It actually dumps a lot as lactate. It can use that for building materials still, but it's not using it as energy. Like a healthy cell is like 98% or something more efficient at using that glucose that comes in. So
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not actually the cancer cell's preferred fuel. Glutamine, you probably know of it, hey, like the non-essential amino acid that your body makes an abundance of. It actually, the cancer cells, a lot of the cancers, there's different cancers and it's a bit more nuanced,
Yeah.
but a lot of the major ones are real glutamine like addicts. They really love it, and you know what food is the highest in glutamine, and that's animal products. Meat, dairy, eggs, fish, all of that the highest in glutamine, and the lowest fruits and vegetables. Hello. People need to understand also that inside the cancer cell, it has its own immune cells, and
Mhm.
those immune cells are actually running on sugar as well. So
Okay.
if you try and take away the sugar, whether it's table sugar, whether it's fruit, or any source of sugar, then you're going to weaken your immunity against the cancer,
Yeah.
correcting that mutated cell. So
So,
you can't do that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not like decrease the fatty acids. It's another thing. When you think of, like when you break it down, amino acids, fatty acids, carbohydrates.
Okay.
It's in the name, right? It's in the name. Hopefully that makes sense to people.
Absolutely. So obviously, so if you're saying like even amino acids and like fatty acids, so would you even argue that a lot of like the protein recommendations that are recommended for men and women are like too high, like it's more than what we even need?
Yeah, I think it's like zero point 0.8, isn't it, per kilo? Zero point 0.8 of a gram per kilo body weight.
Yeah, per like lean body mass, like not
Mm,
your overall, but your lean body mass. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's too much. It is too
Yeah.
much. Especially when, look, the science just doesn't back this up as being a problem, as a protein deficiency being a problem, especially in the Western world, most of the world. Okay, if
Right.
you're a starving child in Africa, like, of course, you're not going to get enough overall calories.
Right.
So then you might get this marasmus or kwashiorkor, which is like to do with not enough overall calories. And then they have an amino acid, deficiency or protein deficiency. So,
Yeah.
of course, if you're malnourished completely, then you're going to be deficient in a whole lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is not
Totally.
seen. This is not seen in the Western world. So what is going on? And the science doesn't actually support to increase the percentage of calories from protein in
Mhm.
the diet if you're even strength training. If you're trying to get all muscly and huge, like increasing the percentage of protein beyond, what they recommend doesn't
Mhm.
actually yield any better uh, muscle building results.
I had actually read that before, and I've even read that sometimes if we're eating too much like overt protein sources, your body's just going to start storing it as body fat because it's not a preferred fuel source.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like it's going to be, yeah, it's also going to be causing issues like we're talking about the glutamine excess,
Yeah.
protein, excess amino acids. It causes people problems with their organs of elimination, cancer potential. Like it just, yeah, it's marketing. It's so much marketing, and it's been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's like most people, as you said, especially in the Western world, are not protein deficient. Way more people are probably, glucose, sucrose deficient and fiber deficient. Those are much more bigger problems
And
than everyone worrying about protein.
yes, yes, exactly right. But there just seems to be this agenda against sugar.
Yeah.
Have you seen it on social media, on Instagram and everything? It's like people are just, sugar is white poison. Sugar will, like, there's this older guy who's got this really viral video on Instagram. He's like, if you eat sugar, it's going to depress your immune system, like just even like a teaspoon for 6 hours. And it's like, it's like crazy because it's the opposite. Your body, your immune system runs on glucose, and sucrose is just a split, 50-50 split of glucose and fructose. And it just fuels you perfectly,
Yeah.
except if there's fat involved, and that's another subject, right?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, and it is on, like you said, on social media, there's so much,
Mm,
hate towards sugar, toward fruit sugar. And one thing that I'm like thinking like, and this is, I guess, more conspiratorial, but if sugar is really so great for our brain and it really, probably allows humans, our mental, our, brain function to function at like its max capacity, of
yeah,
course you wouldn't want people's brain functioning optimally. You would want them tamped down. So
yeah,
yeah, make it all about the protein. Don't like fuel your brain with all the necessary
makes
sugar,
sense. Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I feel this is part of the plan, part of the master plan, because keep people undercarbed, under sugar, not being able to think properly because your brain runs exclusively on sugar. So if you're not getting enough of it, and if you're trying to run on ketones or trying to run on protein, it's just you're going to have so much brain fog. You're not going to be thinking sharply. You're going to have a lot of disease progression, and yeah, and dependent on the system and being medicated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And couple that with so many people being medicated for mental health issues these days. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, like
Yeah, I
human
mean, shoot,
consciousness is so
they
just
I
tamped
mean,
down.
yeah, like it should be seen as medicine too for those people. A lot of them
Yeah.
need more sugar. It's actually very medicinal. It's medicinal even to put on your wounds, straight
Oh,
sugar.
wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
I didn't know. Oh, that's
antibacterial.
so cool.
That's where honey gets a lot of its antibacterial properties from the sugar aspect.
Okay. That makes
So,
sense. Huh, wow. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure you work with people too. Like people always report the second they start eating more fruit, just how much clearer they're thinking and how much
hmm,
lighter they feel. And it's like, yes, your brain is finally so happy.
exactly. Like so happy. And fruit will always be queen. I want to make a point of just clarifying that, fruit is the best. It comes from nature, it comes in a package. However, it has been, it's quite depleted these days, the fruit that is available to us. And that's part of why we're here growing our own fruit, trying our best.
Yeah, to
So
just
yeah, so we can get the best quality. But unfortunately, most of the world doesn't have access to, growing their own.
yeah,
So it
definitely.
makes a big difference.
Totally. So let's switch gears a little bit. So people like they may have listened and been like, okay, I agree, like fruit sugar is great and like I'm white table sugar, I can see why it's healthy for you, but I don't want to deal with glucose spikes and that's bad. And like
Yeah,
you don't want to have too many glucose spikes. So what do you tell people when they're like, it's spiking my glucose, this is bad, what do I do?
I know. Like Glucose Goddess, she has really
Oh,
done a lot of bad things for sugar and for this whole
totally.
glucose spiking. She's representing normal glucose, like rising glucose in the bloodstream as something bad. Spikes are not inherently bad. Okay, it's not. People need to understand that's the way the fuel gets into the cell. We need that. So the sugar
Yeah.
goes up, the insulin comes along and helps the sugar get into the cell. This isn't a bad thing. We need to spike the blood sugar. And I know
Yeah.
people don't like that term spike. it, it's got some bad connotations, hasn't it? But raise the
Yeah.
blood sugar. And
Yeah.
see, it's all about how quickly the sugar clears from the bloodstream. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, just if it's in the bloodstream, if you have that spike, if you see it on the glucose meter that it goes up fast and too high, then that's bad and I can't eat sugar. But that's not how it is. It's about how long it takes to clear from the bloodstream. So if your blood sugar stays elevated after the spike, you get the spike, which is normal. That's how the fuel gets into the cell. But if it stays elevated, for hours longer than it should, then you have a problem. And whether that problem be too much fat in your bloodstream, or you might have lipotoxicity, where you have excess fat accruing, like gathering in your liver, your pancreas, muscles, everything. This excess fat, which then makes it hard for the insulin and the sugar to get the insulin to help the sugar get into the cell, because the fat is kind of clogging up the cell. So, people need to realize that it's not the sugar. Sugar is actually trying to help fuel you, but it gets interrupted by that excess fat. Because look around what people are eating. It's so far from what a frugivore should be eating, right? So much fat and so many additives, and I think it's just in this very sad place. Like when I see some shows on TV and they're trying to normalize eating foods that are so far from what our physiology is meant to be consuming. Yeah. So, when you really clean up your diet and you keep your diet low fat, I recommend like 5% of daily calories as the best from fat. Okay. Yeah. Definitely below 10%. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Averaging that amount. Sure, some days you might go over. Some days you might have 20%, but as long as you try and average that to around 5%. Because you look at the Okinawans, like the longest lived culture. I think it is on Earth. I think they're actually the longest, and they have the longest lived females on Earth. Oh, wow. Okay. Historically. They're having, historically, they might have changed quite a bit now, but they were having 6% of daily calories from fat. Only 6%. Also, big sugarcane farmers. Big sugarcane farmers. So they were having the refined sugar as well. Yeah. And the purple sweet potato was the main crop in their diet. Yeah. And it's high in sucrose. So very interesting, right? Because the grains, then they don't have sucrose. Grains don't have sucrose. They just have glucose, which is not optimal. You have to break down thousands of glucose bonds to access the glucose. Yeah. So you want the foods that are high in sucrose, and that is fruits and also sweet potatoes. Like the
purple ones specifically, or any variety?
Yeah, purple sweet potatoes, very high in sucrose. Okay. Yeah. So it kind of makes you think like, wow, that's the longest lived culture, longest lived females. And they're having a lot of sucrose. They're having very low fat. Sure, they're moving their body, which I recommend as well. But obviously, and very low animal product consumption. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. So obviously my next question is, what do you say to people who say, oh, well, if you're constantly spiking your blood sugar, that's going to like increase aging? And clearly you're a good example that that's not the case.
I should have about 150 by now, if that was the case. I know there's another glucose goddess thing. She has some video about like glycation, where you look like you're cooking like a chicken on the inside. If you have a lot of sugar, you're cooking from the inside, and it's really bad. It's going to age you so much, and I should be showing the signs of all this glycation and should be looking really old and weathered. But it's another high fat issue. The fat keeps the sugar in the bloodstream too long. The protein ends up binding with the sugar, and this can cause the glycation. But it's, again, not, the sugar. The sugar is like, just let me get in the cell.
Yeah, it's just an innocent bystander.
Yes. Sugar is being blamed for fat crimes. Yeah. All the time. So just all people need to do is remove the excess fat. And I think some people get a bit depressed when they hear that. They think, oh no, but I love eating fatty this and fatty that. You know what I mean? I love the fat content. But actually, I mean, over time, I don't even like having high fat meals anymore.
Totally agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't.
They don't make me feel great after.
No, it doesn't make me feel great. It doesn't give me good results. Like it makes me, even in my mouth, it like just feels like, And I don't like oil or anything like that. And I think it's just been so long that I've been following low fat. My body just really is communicating with me that this is the best and to keep going. So don't worry, you're not going to I want your audience to know they're not going to miss the high fat, because your microbiome changes as well. and your taste buds change. And before you know it, you're craving a healthier diet. Did we go off track there?
No, I think it's great. It's great information. I like you. I don't consume oils. Maybe once in a blue moon if I am eating something somewhere else that it has olive oil in it, but that's certainly like I don't cook with it. I don't add it into anything. Like my
Yeah.
body's like, yeah, the only really overt fat we want is avocado.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Because seasonally too, like where we originated in the equatorial regions, we wouldn't have got a lot of fat. We wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to have fat all year round. Now we're just like spoiled. We have just so many avocados. We can eat them as many as we want every single day. And
Yeah.
obviously oil is just abundance of oil. And it's very, very easy to follow a high fat diet. And it definitely leads to problems long term. And
Totally.
blood sugar issues like insulin resistance.
Yep.
Because like your cells are like little like tiny rooms basically, and they have a light in there and they need the light to be powered, and sugar powers that light. It's like powers the electricity. But sugar needs to be able to get into the cell, and sugar can't get into the cell or into that little tiny room without the key, basically, the key to the room. And insulin has that key. Insulin's like the doorman, comes along with the key and opens the door for sugar to get into the cell. Yeah. But see, when you eat excess fat, it's basically like a hoarder. A hoarder moves in, and there's like stuff everywhere. Yeah. And in the hallway and everything, and you're trying to get to your room. You can't get to your room because there's just so much buildup of the fat or the stuff. And then insulin can't get you into the cell. And this also happens with intracellular fat, like I was saying, lipotoxicity. The hoarder can also be in your room and jamming the door and everything. So it becomes like a real mess when there's excess fat. Like a process that is usually very, very simple and easy with the doorman and the sugar just gets in there. When the blood sugar rises, insulin comes along and helps it get into the cell. But that very simple process is really interrupted by the excess fat, and then people develop insulin resistance. We've known for nearly 100 years what causes insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Yeah. Now, Dr. Himsworth, he is a British professor. He was a British professor who actually coined the term insulin resistance. He's the creator. He's the inventor of the term insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity. And nearly 100 years ago, he proved that insulin resistance is caused by a high-fat diet, and it's made worse by a high-fat diet. And insulin sensitivity, which is what you want, it's actually improved by a high-carb diet. So for me, I'm thinking, why is this being kept from us? Yeah. Like we knew, the creator of the term insulin resistance and sensitivity, he actually established this already through many tests. There's science on it if people want to read about it as well. So it makes you think, makes you wonder, right? Like, it does. It really another conspiracy theory.
Exactly. Don't give people the proper answer. Yeah.
He also sorry. He created the oral glucose tolerance test, which is still used today to diagnose type 2 diabetes. Wow. So they use his science when they want to, but certain stuff they're like, nah, let's brush that under the carpet because we want to keep people obese, sick, dependent on Big Pharma, basically. And I'm not saying Big Pharma is all bad because some stuff can be of use, but of course, you know what I'm saying? Mostly.
Yeah. So then that kind of leads me, my next question is like, what would you tell people who, are diabetic, have type 2 diabetes? Like, how can they reverse their condition to be able then to add sugar to their water and sugar to their smoothies if they wanted to? Yep. Or even just eat more fruit if they wanted to, because obviously that's like a fear too.
That's right. More fruit is number one. Definitely number one. Change your breakfast immediately to a fruit meal. Yeah. And even a smoothie as well. Some people are like, oh no, blood sugar spike. But look, you're going to have a bit of elevation if you have insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. You just will have to get through that. There will be elevation for some time because you have that lipotoxicity, most likely, where the fat is in the cell. So I recommend get that fat intake low straight away, 5% of daily calories, which you can work out with chronometer.com. And
Yep.
that's the most important first step. But
Yep.
you need to obviously replace those fat calories that you're taking away with carbohydrates and with sugar as well. So I recommend people dive right in there because they can clear the fat from their bloodstream quickly.
Yeah.
It doesn't take too long, but yeah, they still have the existing issue. But
Right.
is it better to continue having more fat than sugar? No, you've got to replace those fat calories with the sugar and the fruit, with the refined sugar as well. Just keep that fat low. That is, people are reversing type 2 diabetes with
it's crazy, but it's obviously you're doing something natural so your body can then heal.
Yeah.
But there is like a growing period when I first started switching to low fat and high fruit, like I was coming from being insulin resistant. I wasn't diabetic, but I was insulin resistant. And like my blood sugar, I would have crazy crashes and it was very uncomfortable for a while. But eventually everything rebalanced itself out. And so it was just a little uncomfortable for like a week or two. It was not super fun. But
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, because that would give people more confidence and not feel so. I understand. I completely understand why people feel scared. Like, there's so much propaganda about sugar, and so many studies even that are done on high fat with added sugar, blaming the sugar again. So I understand why people are petrified of eating sugar, and it's taken me even time of just educating myself. Really, like when you start to really pull back the curtain, and educate yourself on a very basic, fundamental, like physiological level, then things, you just feel more confident because you're like, oh, okay, I understand how it works now. This isn't the boogeyman,
Right. Yeah. You can learn more about your own body and how it's supposed to function. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to point out that's kind of a sidebar is you mentioned like you can input stuff into Chronometer, which is what I use too every once in a while if I want to I like to check where my fats are at periodically, like, oh, where have I been at this week? And so a couple of weeks ago, I was just putting stuff in Chronometer from the day just to like see, and I ended up figuring out that some of the like logs of different fruits or juices are incorrect. So like I had drank today I had 32 ounces of fresh pineapple juice that I juiced, and it's in Chronometer it said it had 0 grams of protein, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. And so I like looked it up manually, and there's 8 grams of protein in 32 ounces of pineapple juice.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It's a huge difference. And like then I also had a jar of mandarin juice that day, which 32 ounces of fresh mandarin juice has 12 grams of protein, which also it was logged as having no protein. So I'm thinking, how much too of this whole protein thing is it just because like it's not being accurately logged in these food tracking apps that so many people use, and then they're thinking, oh well, there was no protein in that juice that I had or that banana that I ate, and it's like, no, there actually is. It's just not inputted correctly into the database that you're pulling from.
That's a good point to bring up. That's a very good point to bring up because they aren't completely accurate at all. And like the fact that most of the fruit too is like, how have they tested, like how sweet has the fruit that they've tested been as well, and the sweetness of fruit that you get, and the content, the mineral content, everything is going to be
it's really just at the end of the day.
You shouldn't take it as like absolute gospel. Like it's like the truth for sure. I think actually dates are definitely overestimated as well, because they say it on the side of the boxes. I think it's about 60 to 70 calories, but I can tell from so many years of eating dates, and one week I did dates only. I had over 400 dates that week. Yeah. So I'm really experienced with dates, and I can tell compared to like bananas how much they tide me over, how much they keep me satisfied. And it's definitely not the calories that they say on the box or on the Chronometer. Just something for people. I put them at 40 calories each rather than 60 or 70. Just a side note.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're someone who's like consistently always tracking what you're eating. Like take it with a grain of salt because it's probably not totally accurate.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So the other thing that I was curious to ask you about is a big question I get a lot is like, what about women who are starting to go through like menopause? Are they still able to like, thrive and maintain a balanced weight, eating eating lots of sugar, lots of the, table sugar and the fruit sugar? Or do
That's
they
a
need
good
to
question.
adjust their diet to add in more fats? Because obviously, women they're told, oh, for your hormones and you're going through the change, you need more fat. And I'm like,
The
I don't
hormones are
know.
powered by sugar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what people
Yeah.
don't understand. Like estrogen, progesterone, they are powered by sugar. So yeah, if you're going to have excess fat, especially like from animal bits and pieces, coming with their own hormones, animal hormones, that is not good. But
Yeah.
my mum, for instance, she's 74, so she went through the menopause quite a while ago. But
Okay.
yeah, but she is a great example. She's been 15 years fruit based. And
Amazing.
yeah, and I think it's really helped her hormones a lot. And I'm actually, I would say that perimenopause age, right?
Okay.
And I feel like if I wasn't fruit based, it would probably be pretty bad,
Yeah.
with the hormone fluctuations and everything like that. But because I have that high sugar, high fruit diet, it's really, really balancing. And I
Mhm.
noticed just the other day in the VIP community actually, one of the members who is perimenopausal too said, I don't have any more hot flashes
Amazing.
since doing Raw Till 4. And another new member's like, oh, that's really good to hear because, I get like 6 per day. They're just starting.
Yeah.
And another member said, yes, all my hot flashes are gone as well. So that's a testament to it. That's a high carb, high sugar diet. And I think women you don't have to eat any differently. You don't have to eat any differently. You just have to continue moving your body. That's important,
Yeah.
right? Helps balance the hormones as well. Moving your body, keeping the fat low. I know everyone's like, oh, fat's good for hormones and we need lots of essential fatty acids and
Yeah.
we need some, but it's easy. It's easy to cover it.
Super easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think like, don't worry, just eat enough. Make sure you're eating enough carbohydrates, that you're moving your body, that you're hydrating, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, obviously, I totally agree that the sugar is what's key for hormones. Like, I mean, I'm 31, so I mean, I still get a regular cycle, but I used to have PCOS and super painful, irregular periods. It
Mm,
was just a disaster. And then since being like primarily fruit, everything is like clockwork. I use the Natural Cycles like tracking app, and I
yeah.
constantly get reminders from them. Just a reminder that your period is just like clockwork. It's super predictable. And
Oh
I'm
well.
like, this is
Very
actually,
nice.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's
That
all.
that is awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially seeing you've had a past of problems. That's really, really good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that has been huge, like the feedback that I've received over the years about a fruit-based diet, and especially about an all raw diet,
Mhm.
all sweet fruit-based, that there's no period pain at all.
Yeah.
And it's super regular. I mean, I'm nearly 45 and mine is completely regular still. There is not,
Amazing.
yeah, there's no fluctuations at this point, but I'm sure it'll happen because it has to happen, but
Right. Yeah.
it's not yet. Um, yeah, so that's been a really huge thing for me too. When I have gone all raw, absolutely
Yeah.
no pain. But when I'm raw till 4, it's not perfect, but
Right.
it's still very little compared to how it
Right.
used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just getting out that one cooked meal seems to completely eliminate any sort of pain at all, which is
Yeah.
huge for like so many women, with endometriosis and
Yeah.
all sorts of like, oh, yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard
'Cause
some
it's
horror
like, why
stories.
why make yourself suffer every month if there's like this other way and it could be totally seamless? Like obviously,
Yeah,
yeah, it might be a little uncomfortable. Your body is doing something,
yeah,
but like, yeah, it shouldn't be totally debilitating and like,
yeah, yeah,
come
exactly. That debilitation, I mean, like that's not normal. Can you imagine animals in nature like
Yeah.
experiencing that? It just doesn't make any sense. I don't
Totally.
think nature wants us to suffer like that, like the
No,
creator, whoever that is.
definitely not. Yeah. So yeah, and like I've even read before that even menopause, the change is really supposed to be fairly seamless for women. It's not supposed to be this uncomfortable thing that most people experience, and
Yeah.
mostly that is the byproduct of terrible nutrition and environmental toxins even.
That's right. That's right.
So is there anything else about like white sugar that we didn't touch on that you're like people should know this about white sugar?
Um, well, I think they really need to understand that like it's hydrating, it's not acidic.
Okay.
People think that's a big one. People think it's acidic,
Yeah.
but it's actually neutral on the pH scale. It's
Okay. That's good
neutral,
to know.
and
Yeah.
after processing, it's neutral in the body. Like people people want to say, no, it's like Barbara O'Neill, she says, I'm not sure if you know who that is, but yeah,
I do.
Barbara O'Neill, fellow Australian, she says that white sugar is pure crystallized acid. She's really passionately against it, but
Yeah.
she hasn't done the basic education about what sugar actually is, and it's not acidic at all. So it's good to get that one out of the way. Also, it's very, very pure. It's extremely low on contaminants, 99.9% pure. That's why it looks the way it does.
Yeah.
And remember the brown sugar? The brown sugar is actually has turned that way from being cooked a lot.
Yeah.
So those compounds haven't got better for you. You know,
Right.
they're not healthier because some of them are burnt as well. And sometimes there's ash and all sorts of things in molasses. So you're actually better off having white sugar or translucent sugar. Remember, it's crystallized. Yeah, crystallized sunshine.
Yeah.
It literally is. And
I love it.
it's exactly the same molecule that is found in fruit. Sucrose is exactly the same. The white sugar, the clear sugar, and the sugar in the fruit are
Yeah.
identical. And yes, it doesn't come with the phytonutrient, you know, like the micronutrients and stuff like that. It doesn't come with them, but that's the body knows how to deal with it very well. Like we are equipped. We even have a sucrose splitting enzyme. It's called sucrase. How cool is that? Like we literally have an enzyme specifically for sucrose. It's called sucrase. So
Yeah.
it's like the body doesn't have any problem breaking this sugar down and using it instantly as fuel. I'm trying to think what else on sugar. Eh,
Yeah.
we can talk about.
Well, that's all so like I mean it's all so interesting. I mean, you've even changed my perspective on it because I would have said, yeah, just avoid any sugar other than the sugar like in fruits basically or like maybe coconut sugar or something.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. And I mean coconut sugar. I mean you can make cane sugar at home in a saucepan. You can make it
Oh,
yourself. It's very easy.
yeah.
Just reduce sugarcane juice, and
Okay.
it will like come into like a
Crystal.
toffee basically,
Oh.
and it will be browned because of what I spoke about. But yeah, you
Hmm.
can make it at home. It's super simple, and I'm glad that I have like kind of influenced you in that way because I feel like sugar has such a bad rap. I feel like everyone's bullying sugar, and I'm like the sugar defender. Like I didn't like sign up for this, but I just like with my research, during my research, I'm like, hang on, this is not right. Things are
Right.
not looking, this is not good. You know what I mean? It's dodgy and the truth is not being shared here. So I feel like it's my duty to bring some love back to the sugar.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing that because, yeah, I've certainly learned so much from you doing that and doing your posts recently
Oh, good.
on sugar. So it's fascinating, and I'm glad you're like, okay, I'm going to put this out there because obviously it's really controversial, and I can only imagine
Oh,
the
yeah.
hateful comments that you have been getting
Oh
because
my God, people
obviously,
are so bad. People are
sure,
like, they want me dead. Like it's insane how intense
crazy.
people feel about this, and it's just like an example of how much they've been, brainwashed, right? Like by all the propaganda on Instagram, even on Facebook, whatever. Like, and another thing I wanted to just before we moved on from the sugar is that in 1930s we are actually eating more sugar, quite a bit more sugar than we are now. Isn't that interesting? So, uh, yeah, we were eating quite a bit more sugar. Type 2 diabetes wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
Obesity wasn't a thing, but we were eating more sugar. So, and now you look at the statistics today, like I said before, the artificial sweeteners came in, like the promotion around 2000, and then sugar started to decrease because people were like, oh, scared of sugar now. And but what continued to go up was the type 2 diabetes. What continues to climb is the obesity, type 2 diabetes, why the sugar's going down.
yeah,
So what's that tell? The fat is going up, the fat
yeah.
intake, it's like rocketing. What's
That's so
that telling us?
interesting. Totally. Well, I didn't even know that like white sugar intake was decreasing. I knew fruit intake has been decreasing for like however many years now. So like clearly, obviously, fruit's not the problem. So yeah, I'm not surprised that even that white table sugar is decreasing. Like you said too, now they offer sugar alcohol. So it's like, yeah, we don't need that anymore. We'll just put the either the erythritol in your food and it's
Yes.
fine.
So yeah, and you're gonna get explosive diarrhea. Yeah, it's terrible, isn't
Exactly.
it?
Well, then they recently found out that erythritol causes heart disease. So it's like,
Oh no,
yeah.
I wouldn't go back. That's why I've been on it for 18 plus years. Like,
Yeah. I know you're a perfect example, like, because you've been on it for so long. Like, I'm only like 6, 7 years
oh,
in,
that's
so
good. Yeah.
I'm fairly new. So it's like so nice to talk to someone who's been doing it for so long to at least show my audience, like, look what the possibility is. Like, look how much better it can continue to get.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're doing really well. That's a long time, and I'm not surprised. And I can see you'll just continue on, and you're glowing and beautiful. You're
Thank
a
you.
very good example of doing a fruit-based diet and succeeding and getting fantastic results.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you.